So folks, if we could call the meeting to order, please. All right. So here we are on September 6th, 2017, the meeting of the Bennington School District School Board. Before we kick off, I'm hoping to add two agenda items, please, tonight. One is to add a discussion of the Communicable Diseases policy, which is number 5140, and another is to add a discussion of the field trip policy, number 6230. So if I could have a motion to that regard, please.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Jackie and George. Any discussion?
Are you going to insert that under number 8 policies?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. So first and a second, any discussion about adding those two under section number 8? Very good. All those in favor of adding those two discussion items, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Very good. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. So those will be added to 8. That's, again, number 5140 and number 6230. All right. So kicking off, given the number and the kind of community feedback we've had, community comments we've had in the last few meetings, I wanted to just take a quick review of policy number 7300. It's the public participation of board meetings. And again, like all the policies, it's available online for review. I'm certain we can even make hard copies available for pickup at the central office if we needed to. I won't read it verbatim, but I will summarize. The first section, the statement of purpose, really speaks to the fact that the boards want public participation. Although these are not public meetings, they are meetings that are held in public, and therefore there should be an opportunity for the public to speak and even to ask questions, although we'll get into that. Number 2, procedures. There are 4 items in here, and it really discusses about the public's ability to address the board. That ties into section 3D, which I'll get to momentarily, but really the idea is to make known public concerns, public statements, but not necessarily to engage in a debate or a conversation with board members. That's section 2. Section 3 states pretty clearly that community members are to state their name, address, and any group that they may be representing. That's something that we've kind of fallen away from that hopefully we can re-implement. It also provides for written statements to be provided to the board with the understanding that no single member of the board can speak for the board as a whole, so there shouldn't necessarily be a back and forth correspondence resulting from a written bit of communication. Section 3D is important, and that I will read. If questions are directed by the public to the school board or prudential committee on topics that have not been posted as agenda items, answers shall be deferred pending consideration by the full school board or prudential committee and respective district and supervisory union administrators in a timely manner. I'm reading that in conjunction with the statements about addressing the board. So again, we have opportunities to address the board, which are fine. Questions can be posed during that period, but they won't necessarily be answered at that time. They may very well be addressed through the conversation that will unfold throughout the agenda. That's fine. If there are questions made on items that are not on the agenda, a response should be expected within that timely manner. So, wanted to put that out there to sort of clear up any misunderstanding, or maybe even for our own edification to get us out of maybe some habits that we shouldn't be in.
Go ahead, Jackie.
So, any questions about? Yeah, Jackie. Thank you.
What's a timely manner?
I believe that timely manner is defined within the business week, which seems reasonable. I know that
Is there any administrative regs to this policy?
None that were attached to the policy itself. But maybe Jim, can you speak to that, to admin regs about 7300?
I don't know if we would write admin regs to board policy, specifically assign the board, but, and I would say timely manner could also be the next board meeting too, depending what the urgency is, because I feel if the question's asked in public, it should be answered in public. So that would be, even if we gave the individual who asked the question an answer earlier than that, we should probably, if there is an answer to be given, address it at the next board meeting.
And that seems reasonable too. Any additional comments or question or discussion on policy 7300?
Is there a time limit for the person speaking?
It speaks to 5 minutes. The policy speaks to a 5-minute window. It also says that the chair can kind of end public comment whenever the chair sees fit. It outlines 5 minutes. I think in due respect to the public who bother to show up, if they have something that they feel passionately about, this chair at least is inclined to sometimes extend that 5 minutes, but that should not necessarily be taken as a given. Okay, great. Moving on to public comments, speaking of which. So the floor is open for public comments, if any. And hearing none, we will move on to number 3. So we have Vic Milani, who's here.
If I could, I have an introduction.
Please do, Jim. Thank you.
One of the goals that was given to me by the SVSU board last year was to address school safety plans, update school safety plans. So I reached out to Victor Milani, who some of you may know. He works at Mount Anthony Union High School as part of the school security team. And why I reached out to Victor is I'm going to read a little bio that I have of him. Some of you who are on the SU board have heard this. Sorry for the repeat, but not everybody here is. So, Victor is a law enforcement professional with 29 years of experience. He began his law enforcement career with the New York City Police Department while completing his PhD in forensic biology at New York University. He next accepted a position as the deputy chief of the Massachusetts Municipal Police Department, where he served for 2 years prior to being promoted to chief, a rank he held for the next 17 years. His final years of law enforcement service was as Commandant of the Western Massachusetts Police Academy at Agawam for 9 years. In this role, he was responsible for the training in excess of 500 police recruits for service in police departments throughout Western Massachusetts. Throughout his career, he has taught numerous courses at both the undergraduate and graduate level at Bay Path University as a professor of criminal justice and forensic science. Hearing that resume, I'm sure you agree that he is qualified to lead the supervisory union as we revamp our school safety plans. With that introduction, Victor.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be here this evening to kind of give you an overview of what Mr. Culkeen spoke of and how we accomplished that task of having emergency operation plans in place for every school in the district as of September 1st. But before I do that, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge some people. Obviously, this was a joint effort, and a lot of people helped us accomplish this goal. If it were not for our superintendent, I wouldn't be standing before you tonight. It was him who initiated this undertaking, and again, knowing how important it is as part of our mission to deliver quality education, but equally as important is we have to deliver that in a safe environment. And he was very proactive in that regard in asking me to assume this position and role, and one that I'm grateful that I was able to accomplish the goal that we set. In addition to that, there are several people in the audience here who greatly assisted me in accomplishing this goal for the Bennington School District. The 3 principals that sit before you, Mike Bugitz, Donna Coley, Edie Dunn, we spent lots of hours together in developing and designing the plan. In addition to that, Jerry Crew, who was Director of Facilities for the Bsd schools, was invaluable in the type of assistance he gave me, so we spent lots of time together as well. Before we began to actually even develop emergency operation plans, what we had to do is a building safety assessment for each of the Bsd schools. And what we did, together with the principals and Jerry, we walked through each school and began to look at the school as a physical structure and how we can improve safety within that particular building. And our first assessment really focused on 3 areas. We wanted to look at the telephone system and to be able to say that it certainly serves the need of the faculty and staff in that building, and certainly would be able to respond and be able to provide the necessary communications in any type of emergency event. So we evaluated that, and the second area we looked at was the entry system to each school. We wanted to see how that was monitored. We wanted to make any suggestions to improve the entry system in each school if that was the case. And finally, we looked at the cameras, the video recording capabilities in each of the buildings. We looked at the placement of the cameras. We made a determination as if we wanted to request more cameras in areas where we felt we didn't have the observation capabilities to be able to assess any type of threat or hazard. What became very apparent to us as we walked through these buildings, and again, SBSU-wide, is when we refer to a particular room, most of us were in the habit of saying, this is Mike Malloy's room, or this is the sixth grade classroom, or this is the fourth grade classroom, or this is Mrs. Jones's classroom. And we really have to get away from that type of nomenclature, because in the event of an emergency, first responders are not going to be able to determine which is Mrs. Jones's room and which is the sixth grade room. So we wanted to be sure that every enclosed area in all of our buildings had a number, so that again, it could be referred to as a numbered room. So it would be room 123, not Mrs. Jones's room. And obviously a first responder, whether it be police, rescue, or fire, would be able to make a quick determination that that is the area we have to focus on where perhaps the threat might exist. So what we did is we looked at every enclosed area in all of the BSD schools, and we made sure that every room was numbered. If it wasn't, we came up with a number for that particular room. And again, part of my job is to be as consistent as possible with everything we do in all of our SVSU schools. And the reason for that being, we have paraprofessionals, we have other type of contracted staff that go to various schools. So if we have a particular protocol in place for one school in the district, we want it to be as consistent as we can with all of the schools. So again, that would help a person who is not in one school all the time and goes from school to be somewhat familiar with our protocols. So going back to the room numbering, we use the code. If it's a restroom, it had to start with R. If it's a maintenance closet, it started with M. If it's a janitorial closet, it started with J. And again, we now have a system where we have every enclosed space in every BSD school is going to have a number. The other thing that we wanted to focus on, we did a little experiment. We asked some of the students, what room are you in for a particular, for your sixth grade math? And they would say, well, again, that's Mrs. Freed's room. And we'd say, well, what's the number of the room? They didn't know. So what we made a determination to do is that we are not only numbering every room on the corridor side, but we're also numbering every room inside the room above the door frame. So that would ensure that at any time, should there be an emergency, should the room fill with smoke, every student will know what room that is, because the room number is going to be inside the room as well as outside the room. And Jerry is going to be working on that task now that the buildings have been turned over to us, and now you can see school is resumed. So hopefully in the next few weeks or the next few months, Jerry will complete that task where we'll have every enclosed space in every BSD school numbered on the outside, above the door frame, and on the inside. Going into the emergency operation plans, we all know how important it is to have these plans in place. Certainly, as parents send their children off to school each day, we have an awesome responsibility, not only to educate them, but to ensure their safety. And the superintendent, myself, and the members of all of the safety teams of the 3 BSD schools that sit here today worked very diligently and were very motivated to develop a plan that would ensure to the best of our ability their safety in the event of a threat or hazard. We've studied nationwide. We looked at tragedies and occurrences that occurred all across this country, and we've evaluated what was the action that we took. Was it appropriate? Could have we done more? And we educated ourselves. So that's how we began to develop and design these plans with that experience, with that education behind us. We have to have a plan in place that will tell our teachers, our staff, what do you do in the minutes before first responders arrive on a scene? And any threat or hazard that's going to present itself in any of our school buildings, there's going to be an interval of time that's going to take for our first responders to arrive on scene. So we want our teachers, we want our staff to know what they should be doing, and we're going to give them a protocol to follow in the event of a threat or hazard. On the other side of the coin, we've met with the community partners who are the police, the fire, rescue, and we've showed them these plans. We've collaborated with them They're signing memorandums of understanding with us. So they know what to expect of us, and we know what to expect of them. And that's how we prepare for any threat or hazard. What the state has suggested we do is we look at the 4 categories of threat or hazards. We have natural hazards, which are mostly weather-related hazards, tornadoes, floods, so windstorms, blizzards. We have the technological hazards, which can include hazardous material spills, gas leaks. We have the adversarial type of threats and hazards. Those would be, obviously, the school shooter. It would be the missing student. It would be the school bus accident. So we had to analyze the different types of threats or hazards that might present itself in all of our BSD schools. And we did that by assigning a risk priority. We looked at the types of threats or hazards in all 4 categories, and we made a determination. Is it a low risk priority, a medium risk priority, or a high risk priority? If it fell in medium risk or high risk, we were asked to develop a protocol, a series of steps that we would follow in the event of any of these types of hazards. And again, that becomes the plan. So again, if there was a similar type of response, for instance, it might be an early release, certainly we could group those threats and hazards together. But now what we have for each BSD school, in fact for every school in the district, we have assigned the risks that have that medium risk priority, and now we have that protocol for each one to be followed. So that, again, gives some consistency among the schools, as, again, that was one of our goals, to make sure that we can be as consistent as possible. We also have evacuation procedures, and we refer to those as stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. The stage 1 evacuation is essentially a fire drill. And essentially, in the event of a fire, we know the first priority is to evacuate the building. All students, staff, faculty should go to the nearest exit and evacuate the building. But then we have to have a plan beyond that. When they evacuate the building, where do they assemble? Who goes through the building and determines that the building has been evacuated? So we have what are known as sweepers. We have people that have been assigned various sectors of the building, where upon activation of the fire alert system, whether it be auditory and visual in the case of strobes, these persons would remain in the building and they would assure that their particular designated area, all the people have left the building. There's an incident commander, which again is the principal of each school. Again, there's a designated backup. I'm happy to report that the principals have attended incident command training, which is a state training. They've been certified as incident commanders. So we're way ahead of the curve in that regard. So once the sweepers have indicated to incident command, the building is there's no one in the building. The incident command would say, is the building clear? They would respond, yes, it's clear. That means then these sweepers would go to the outside. They would meet with these groups that have assembled in their assigned areas to take attendance. It's very important we account for all persons present. We have to know if a student is missing. If someone is missing as a result of us taking that attendance, obviously we have to initiate an investigation and find out where that student might be. So that's called a stage 1 evacuation. A stage 2 evacuation is if we have to evacuate the building for an extended period of time. Maybe there was some smoke in the building. Maybe it was from the boiler. Maybe somebody was cooking toast. Again, we might have to be out of the building for a longer period of time. There's going to be a fire department response. This was not a planned drill. So what we want to have is a designated area where, again, everybody's evacuated the building, they can assemble, and we can get a more accurate count of all persons present. We have everybody kind of in one assembled area. Again, keeping them outside for a longer period of time. That's called a stage 2. So we had to certainly make preparations for a stage 2 location. The stage 3 location is the off-site location. Every school in the district has an off-site location that they would go to. In the case of Molly Stark, the off-site evacuation, which is called the Stage 3, is going to be the Bennington Tennis Center. So we had to go over to the Bennington Tennis Center. Mike and myself met with the manager-owner there. We had to obviously draw a floor plan, designate where our students would go, how we would line them up. We had to assign responsibilities to every faculty and staff member as to how can we move these students safely, how can we be assured that the ones we take out of Molly Stark arrive there so we can account for all persons present. We certainly have to meet their needs. If they need first aid, we have to be able to accommodate them and do that. So in a Stage 3 evacuation in every SDSU school, that's an off-site location, and every faculty and staff member in every school has been assigned a role or responsibility, whether it be student escort, whether it be a grade monitor, whether it be one who is asked to patrol the perimeter to discourage entry, because law enforcement has told us we've got to do it all. If they're dealing with an incident, they can't control traffic. We have to assign people at intersections to control traffic as we cross intersections. In the high school, we're moving over 1,000 students, faculty, and staff from the high school to the Bennington Fire Station. So we have to have intersection monitors. We have to have people who will check the students in upon arrival. We have to have students who, faculty who are going to escort the students. So again, obviously the larger number of schools, in the case of the high school and the middle school, Molly Stark being the largest elementary school, again, we looked at some challenges, but I think we were able to solve all of those issues. The final type of procedure I'll mention is the lockdown procedure. Of all of the types of hazards or threats, the one that receives the most media attention falls into the category of human adversarial threats, and that obviously is the adversarial shooter. Certainly we want to be prepared for that, but I have to emphasize that it is far more likely that we are going to encounter a natural hazard, a technological hazard, or a biological hazard than we're going to encounter an active shooter. Are we prepared for the active shooter? Do we have to have our protocols in place? Absolutely. But I didn't want to not pay attention certainly to all of those other areas where we're far more likely to have an incident occur. In the case of an adversarial shooter, we talk about what's called a lockdown. The incident commander would give the command to clear the halls. This would mean that teachers would lock their doors. They would put down any window covers that exist in the room. They would, again, we have a green card, red card system. If all is well in the room, they would place a green card under the door that would go into the corridor side. They'd put one in an exterior window after they've pulled the shade. This would tell law enforcement, as we've begun to clear a building, and I've been on this side as well, I've cleared buildings, and it's a good feeling when you're going down a hall and you know that these rooms are all set. You see a red card, I'm not going to stop, because my role, if I'm clearing that building, is to neutralize the threat. So I'm going to continue moving, but I'm going to be radioing, there's a problem at 123, I got a red card. That's going to mean that there's going to be a more rapid response to that room. Somebody's going to be moving to that room to find out what the problem is. So at any rate, these people are locked down in the room. They're in what we call a refuge or safe area. That's an area of the room that we've determined, even if there's a window in the door, the perpetrator can't see them in the room. We impress upon the students no use of cell phones, no communication. Again, we're going to be prepared for that adversarial event should it occur. We hope to God it won't, but on the other hand, we're certainly going to do our homework and make sure that we have a plan in place. I'm happy to say that every school in the district has been very compliant. There were schools that were doing various variations of the lockdown. We're now consistent district-wide. We're all going to be using red card, green cards. So if you go at any school in the district and there's a lockdown, you're going to know what the protocol is. So again, this is where we are now. All of the schools have the plans. I've been meeting with faculty and staff at each school to present the plan, to give them an overview, to see if they've had any questions. We've done about 3 schools in the SBSU. In the next few weeks, I'll be doing all the others, and obviously, we'll be presenting to each board in the district, just as I'm before you tonight. So I hope that gives you some overview of what we've been doing. Again, looking up here, I'm so gratified by the fact we see 2 new speakers up here. Jerry and the principals of the Bsd schools have identified that one of the areas of concern was that if there was an announcement to be made regarding an emergency situation, there were areas, not only in the school, but certainly in the exterior, where if there were children outside with faculty staff, they wouldn't hear that announcement. So one of the biggest upgrades that really makes me smile is the fact now in each of the 3 Bsd schools, we have a new PA system. We've made a determination of where those speakers should be located on the exterior. We're pretty confident that we're going to have both interior and exterior coverage. We've also determined some doors that we want to have quicker access to. Jerry stepped up to the plate. He's allocated funds to put a fob on that door. So I'm very pleased with the way this is developed in the Bsd schools. So again, I've probably exceeded my 15 minutes, but again, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Vic,
George.
I wanted to ask you, on the first responder, in whatever building they come into, is there anything that would indicate to a first responder where the rooms are? For example, let's take Molly Stark, and let's say there's a problem, and the first responder comes. Is there any instruction as to where room 10, 18, 24, is there any instruction as the first responder comes in, where to go?
Okay, let me answer that question, George, for you. First of all, the room numbering system in each school is somewhat different. However, if there's an incident, the incident commander is going to be meeting with the first responders as they arrive on scene. Myself as safety liaison, I'm going to be on site. So we will be able to direct them because we will have our plan in place. So we'll be able to tell them exactly where that room is. We also have the ability to monitor the cameras, where we'd be able to look throughout the building on the camera system to determine where a particular threat or perpetrator might be located. So again, to give you the short answer, that first responder would be collaborating with Incident Command and myself to determine exact locations of where the threat exists.
It's on their phone.
And there are backups for each incident commander.
Correct.
Because inevitably, something may happen when that person is not in the building.
That's correct. And what we tried to do in the case of each incident commander, and in all of the key roles, Mr. Colquhoun is a public information officer. He would be making all statements to the public. He has a backup. So again, we've always tried in all of these key positions to have a backup person.
Dr. Milani, are we 100% ready to go on this? Have the teachers and staff been trained in some of the things you were speaking about? Or?
The teachers and staff have been trained. I was at Molly Stark. I was at Monument. We have Venel scheduled. So we rolled it out to the teachers and staff. And I guess the principals would probably be in the best position to comment how they received it. My perception was that they received it very well. They were very enthusiastic about the fact now that they feel safer, but I'm sure one of the principals can comment on it.
We're all set with the exception of distributing the red cards and green cards.
Okay.
Sets for every nook and cranny that we have here so that it can be posted, but Vic has done a great job, very thorough. Certainly had a rapt audience when you're talking about safety, and I felt it was very well received, and appreciate Vic coming over last Friday to assist our staff.
Thank you.
And if I also may add, I did share with Mr. Milani already. He did present to our staff. He was very well received, very thorough, exceptionally thorough. With the work that we had done prior to the plan. We have the plan. It is extremely thorough. The staff is ready, and I would say except for the red and green cards. So we're going to be reviewing it again during our staff meeting on the 13th, but feeling really confident that we have a great plan to keep our children safe and our staff members safe.
Thank you.
So cards and room numbers.
Correct.
Those are the two pieces?
Those are the two pieces that remain to be done, and each school, and by communicating with Mike today, is in the process of getting those cards ready, and they'll be included in the emergency packs in each classroom. And also, in non-classroom areas, we had to designate, where does somebody go if they're in here? This is kind of a non-classroom area. This is a cafeteria, this is a gym. So we had to, in every school, go through every building and say, this is an area where students could be. Should there be a lockdown, where is the refuge area that we want them to go? And so we also should have those emergency packs in those non-classroom areas, should they have to seek refuge. So that's kind of where we are. Those are the two things to be done.
We should also mention that, no plan should go dormant. So we have school safety teams in each building that is going to meet every other month. We've asked the principals to provide scheduled dates for those, that they'll be published of when those meetings are, and they can review procedures and events that have gone, and if we need to make any changes, it's a living document, and those changes will be made.
Every presentation, just as a week goes by, obviously you have a change in staff. As I mentioned, every member of the school community has a role in that stage 3 evacuation. So we have to continually update this. This is dynamic. It will continue to go on. Certainly, I get emails all the time from now faculty and administrators. What should we do with this? What should we do with that? I'm available to go out there and speak to anybody who wants to talk to me out of question. So we'll continue to do this, but we've got the framework in place. We've got a good plan in place. Now all we got to do is keep it current, modify it, and revise it as we continue to learn.
Dr. Kelly, you had a question?
Just one question. On your red and green cards, do you have the words red and green on them? The reason I ask is because those are the most confused colors for people who are colorblind.
That's a good point. And again, if we are aware of people who are colorblind in the building, we certainly should do that. But that's a good suggestion. We certainly have on each red and green card in large numbers the room that it pertains to. But maybe we should also write on them red and green. So thank you for that suggestion. That's a very good suggestion.
What about subs? Are they receiving substitutes? Are they getting their a session on?
There is a substitute training, and certainly it's going to be my role to go in during that substitute training and kind of give them an overview of the different types of evacuation plans. So that is in the works, and certainly we'll be doing that as well. But again, it was certainly the reason for trying to be as consistent as possible from building to building.
And do you have like a set goal to have the room numbers put up and all the training completed? Like, is there like a set deadline that you have?
I think our set goal is as soon as possible. Jerry, what are we looking at?
Yeah, I only got these buildings back to me a week ago, so
No,
probably
yeah,
by the end of this month, I'm hoping.
yeah. I'm not saying that you should have had them done already. I'm
Not
sure
the
that.
guilty one.
Yeah.
Red and green cards, I think we could probably do in a couple of days. And still-
And Vic, the flip chart that you and I have talked about would be accessible to substitutes who would be available at any station where there are learners. And what we want to do is take what is a very thorough and well thought out plan and reduce it to its essentials and have it color coded in the flip chart. So it's a little intruder, what to do with lockdown, and something that people can see if this is their first day as a substitute.
This is something also we saw in our incident command training, even incident commanders. Again, this flip chart is very handy, it's very quick, and we know that in any type of hazard or threat, people's adrenaline levels is going to be skyrocketing. So again, we want to make it as easy as possible for them to access whatever information they need to respond to that threat or hazard.
Any other questions?
The kids, students, how are they responding to it? Has it been rolled out to them, or is it just similar enough to the old plan as far as they're concerned that you don't have to do a special rollout and just reinforce what they already knew?
What we are doing in the high school, for example, we have what's called an SOS program, which is a 15-minute seminar that every student attends every day. We're rolling out the plan to them in these SOS presentations. I think at the elementary schools, they have some other ideas on how to roll it out to the students, how to present it to them. But again, we want to make the students aware of this. we want to give students opportunity to ask questions as well. We want them to feel comfortable. This plan is only as good as everybody who buys into it. And to buy into it, you got to be informed. So we want to make sure first that our faculty and staff is informed and comfortable, and then make sure they can obviously deliver the message to the students.
Jackie?
The flip charts, are they going to be in each room?
Flip charts will not be probably in each room initially. That's our ultimate goal. We'll be working on that throughout the year. I don't have a timetable on that, but again, that is certainly on our list of things to do as we continue to look at this dynamic document.
I know at one of the, I don't know if it was at Mount Anthony or if it was the place I worked, we used to have, it was, you just grabbed it. It had the yellow orange vest, it had everything you wanted to do.
We have that now. We call those emergency packs. We do have the vests. We do have the evacuation procedures and so forth. But again, it's on sheets of paper. I think Dr. Mugis was referring to having a chart, a little flip chart in your hand, similar to what we received in incident command training. That's what we're looking towards
We
doing.
want that in every room.
Yeah.
So that if you're a substitute, a student teacher, there's an adult that has access to that. It's just a very simple color-coded that really highlights the essentials.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Superintendent.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So moving on to point 4, we have a treasurer's report. I don't see the treasurer here to necessarily answer any questions, but were there any points of discussion on the treasurer's report? Okay, great, moving on. We have the consent agenda, which was posted. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So move.
George, can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Jayla. Any discussion on the consent agenda? So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent, consent agenda passes. All right, moving on to a facilities update. So Jackie Prue is the chair of the facilities committee. I'm hoping you can speak to this, but we also have Jeff Goldstone and John Brush here as well, and I think they'd like to.
I'm going to be
add as
brief. We met on 17th of August. Well, Chris, me, the superintendent, and Jerry, and a few people met. But anyways, at that time, Mike told us about some, Mike Davies of EEI told us about some problems, electrical. There was, that needed to be remedied in all our buildings. Pete only had seen where the tiles had been lifted, that there was wires weren't connected to anything, they weren't bundled, they were hooked to pipes. Anyways, that has been taken care of, and we passed inspection the following week. The fire and smoke, our penetrations we have in this building, there's certain areas where there's penetration through walls that were never encapsulated, never closed up, so the smoke could go from room to room. Monument is a bigger area issue because their ceilings, their walls don't go to the roof deck. So we have to build them to the roof deck to pass, but yes.
I have updated information for you about that.
Okay.
You
may need to come to the mic.
Might have to come to the mic.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Brush from EEI. We had a meeting with the Department of Health and Safety, and we believe his recommendation to the Home Office is that Monument will be able to not avoid building the walls and sealing those walls to the roof deck by means of installing a smoke detector on the outside of each classroom and on the inside of each classroom door. So that's a first alert that they believe is going to be more effective than sealing against smoke. If there is smoke traveling between the rooms or from the hall into a room or from the room into the hall, smoke detectors will go off and trigger the fire alarm before the antiquated or the older method of safety, which was sealing the hall from the classrooms. So that's probably going to be approved. It was okay by Michael and Peter only, and Matt Jacobowski.
So Pete, is Pete gonna approve that for Molly Stark and Bennell?
That was a unique situation for Monument only. And for Molly Stark and for Bennell, all penetrations that were done during the construction project have been sealed. Any pre-existing penetrations that were pointed out as problems will be taken care of, and we have a waiver, the school district and actually the school district and EEI will help. There's a waiver until January 1st.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cleaning of the buildings was the other issue we talked about. The present cleaning company was only going to be able to take care of Monument and Bennell, which put us kind of in a problem, but thanks to EEI and Herculean efforts of various staff members, especially the maintenance staff, we did get this building cleaned. It is open. Outside agencies. EEI was drop dead date for their completion of everything was the 28th. They did make it. There is a punch list, which I think you're going to talk to. But I looked it over today. There didn't seem to be anything major on it. I think as a board, we need to recognize the effort that our maintenance staff and all staff did to help getting the school ready to open, and we need to give EEI a special thank you for assisting with getting our buildings clean for the opening.
Agree.
And that's about all I have to report on it. We haven't had a meeting since, and Jeff has been following it.
Jeff Goldstone from Goldstone Architecture. In fact, as you know, as your owner's representative throughout the project, and I didn't have a report for you in advance of this meeting, and I apologize for that, but there was really no way to write a report because the situation was moving as of last Thursday so quickly that the report would have been obsolete before you had it in your hands. So rather, I don't know if it was a placeholder or not, that it ended up making. In any case, I issued a report today. I distributed it with all of a copy, and I'm happy to give you an electronic copy for whatever use you would have. I can forward that to you tomorrow. The report is rather brief. The front page is probably more important to you than the follow-up pages, but on that I have the status of the job. It was substantially complete on time, as Jackie mentioned. There is a single change order for $42,500. The items on that change order are listed on the top of the report. And finally, there's a pay request, which is pay request number 7, which, as I understand it, there'll be one more pay request to get the last few dollars of the contract, as well as the retainage from the contract, probably at the end of the month or sometime in October. There are several outstanding items of substance that go beyond the punch list items. Those are listed under the outstanding items note, and Jonathan has been whispering in my ear during the beginning of this presentation and said that many of these are either done or are being done today or tomorrow, and so that list is quickly diminishing, and I don't think any of them are particularly significant or worth discussing individually. And finally, the information requested, I think this is more or less for my sake as well as I think for the board's sake, things that should be on file. That you have certificates of occupancy, you have whatever letters there are from the Department of Fire Safety regarding the separations from the hallways into the classrooms that give you the ability to wait until January 1st for that. And various other letters related to the asbestos removal that was done. Structural engineer, we had several things that were outstanding. We've got some documentation that he has signed off on the work that was done, etc. And then the last 2 pages of the report are the punch list that was accurate as of yesterday, end of the day, end of the business day yesterday. So this list is also, some pieces of this list have been addressed since then. And I just wanted you to see the size of this punch list. Frankly, for a project of this magnitude to be done in this period of time and have punch lists this small, I think you guys go to EEI and the district's great credit, because these are minor items and there are very few of them. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them, and I know Jonathan's also happy to address those questions.
Yeah, Yeah, I've never seen a punch list this small.
You can see, in fact, on this, as the punch list, you see the numbers aren't consecutive.
Yep.
Because those are items that have been removed from the punch list since I went over it first.
Yep.
So any number that's missing is an item that is no longer applicable. And I want to say also, this punch list was developed by EEI. I have not personally, nor has anybody on my behalf, walked through all these buildings since this work has been done. It's simply been impossible to do since Thursday or Friday of last week, with the holiday just on Monday, and with the beginning of school. I do want to take a final walkthrough just for my own sake, but I don't think I'll come up with anything that's not already on this list.
It says here that 2 rooms at Molly Stark will have baseball radiation.
Replaced, yeah. There were 2 rooms from which, and I don't know the room numbers, maybe Jonathan does, from which baseboard was not in good shape. Some of the pieces were used elsewhere, and new baseboard radiation will be put into those rooms.
I don't see it on the punch list.
That's why it's on that list.
It isn't on the punch list.
It's not on the punch list. And Jonathan, do you know which rooms those are?
39 and 35. Missing ventilation.
Oh, missing ventilation.
Oh, no, that's not it.
No, that's different. That's...
It's the first two rooms on this wing.
I don't know the room numbers.
Anyways, you had to order it, didn't you, Jonathan?
I did.
That's why it's not in.
But it's not on the punch list.
It was not on the punch list. That's why I listed it separately.
I think it was on the original though, because when I was looking at it earlier today, I saw it, and I knew what it was from.
Yeah, with the quick moving nature at the end of the project, it just probably was not covered. I just wanted to be sure that it was listed. And there may be other items like this that I didn't catch also, but seem to get into it. Yes?
In our special meeting, we had approved, for the Monument School lighting, we had approved up to $25,000. And just for my own clarification, the 42.5 that's listed here, is that above and
No, that
beyond the
includes it.
25 we approved?
No, that included that.
Okay, that's my
I have the
question.
punch list. It's not been signed off on yet, but I do have the punch list. So there was $25,000 for the Monument School lighting. There was a $20,000 additional asbestos abatement cost, and then there's a $2,500 credit for the use of the high school server for the monitoring system, control system.
Jeff or Jonathan, do we have a timeline for when the punch list is expected to be completed?
I would say that the punch list probably will be complete by the end of the first week of October.
Okay, great.
The controls company is way ahead of schedule. We were thinking that might be second week of October, but I think that's going to be, we're going to be completely wired and communicating with the boiler rooms by the end of the next night.
Great.
And of course, some of these punch list items relate to the heating systems, which aren't going to be needed for at least a few more weeks.
Hopefully.
Right.
Great. Any other questions for Jackie or for
35, 39.
Jeff or Jonathan? Thank you so much.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, moving on to educational matters. So-
Jonathan has something.
Oh, yes, please.
Right? You just have a moment.
Of course.
Can't carry 3 of these. EEI would like to present 1 plaque for each school. This one's for Molly. It lists present school board involved in the project, last year's school board involved in the project, superintendent, the name of each principal, and Jeff Goldstone, of course, energy. So we are proud to present these to the school, 1 for each. And on top of that, I would like to add that I'm very grateful to the board and to Jim Culkeen for the assistance and support. If we didn't have the extra days in June and the extended days at the end of the summer, this would have been even more brutal than it was. Those days were crucial, and I'm very grateful. Also very pleased to have been working with Jerry Prue. He was very helpful. His team was helpful. Jerry was a key piece of the puzzle. We wouldn't have been able to pull it off quite as easily without his help. So thank you all very much. And we're proud to be a part of this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chris, I'd like one other thing.
Please.
Because of the scope of this project, I would like, I don't know when we could schedule it or how it would be scheduled, but I really think it's important that the community see what they spent $4.3 million on. So that they can, visualize it. It's a lot of money, and there's a lot of things that has been done.
So we're getting a suggestion that maybe
That would be a good
Cat
idea
TV can
too.
help us with a video
Yes,
tour
Cat
of the
TV
buildings?
could do it.
That sounds excellent.
But yeah, I think that there should be a way that we come up with, that the community gets to see. The new boilers just amazed me. I mean, I could have spent all day in the boiler room.
We are impressed.
So maybe to that, I think it's a great idea, Jackie. If folks have specific ideas as to how we can sort of showcase for the community all the hard work that's been done, please feel free to email those to me. I like the idea of the Cat TV doing some sort of documentary walkthrough, and Mike Cutler apparently can sling a camera pretty well, so maybe he can do that for us. Yeah, but why don't folks throw me an email in the next day or so with some ideas, and then we'll get something moving. But that's a great idea. Great. Excellent, so thank you. So moving on to educational matters. So here we are at Molly Stark, so we would certainly first invite Dr. Mike Mugitz to tell us how things are going.
Thank you. I'm pleased to see that there's a natural progression in the agenda in terms of presentations. We started out with Dick talking about safety, and continued with Jonathan, Chaff, Jerry contributing about other safety features in part of the renovation. Abraham Maslow was a researcher that's noted for identifying a hierarchy of needs. And the base need is for food, shelter, safety, oxygen. And without those, nothing else can happen. And a person develops along that hierarchy. And sometimes we forget that we have issues of security, that was just mentioned tonight, but food insecurity, that we have some homeless learners, and this district provides more than adequate support in those endeavors. So you've heard earlier about that base need. And then progressing before Maslow identified the need for someone to experience success and achievement is a need for being accepted, being treated with dignity and respect. And that's what I want to talk about. I've shared with you a copy of the mission at Bsd Elementary School. Provide opportunities for learners of all ages. That means as the youngest child we have here and the oldest staff member, which I think might be me. Because if we, as adults, are not learning, it curtails the opportunities for learners who are younger. And at all stages. And that means from the child who's struggling to gain a new concept to someone who has a voracious appetite for learning across the spectrum. And what we want them to do is reach their potential. Because it's not enough to do well on a test, whether it's a state or a local test, if you're not reaching your potential. So that's to bring some coherence to our school. I'm excited about this year because last year was a lot of look, listen, and learn. Coming in, developing an historical context for the school, getting to know people, getting to know programs, personnel, and practices. And so along that way, if there was something that was urgent, that was critical, I naturally intervened as the leader of the school. But I also took notes on what we could be doing, what we should be doing. And it starts with an adage that should be the foundation for everything we do here. And it's very simple. People don't care about how much you know until they know about how much you care. And it's fitting that we're in this room because this display is an excellent example over here. Laura George, one of our kitchen staff, developed that. We have a kitchen staff that serves more than food. And I could go on and on about what they do, but instead I'm going to read a letter that one of our fifth graders left for the kitchen crew as she transitioned to the middle school. Dear everyone, I will miss you all. Evie, who is our cafeteria manager, Evie, you were a big help when I had problems. Lindsay, Laura, and Riley, you guys were easy to talk to, and you're also very helpful. I love you. That's the type of attitude that we want to recognize and reward at our school. And it goes back to people don't care about how much you know until they know about how much you care. And so it's not just the kitchen staff. I want to thank Jerry Prue, Dave Hensley, Dave Reifenberg for everything they did. This room that we're in now, Tuesday, last Tuesday, was half full of boxes. And I don't know how everyone did it, except I can tell you that we had staff members. There were teachers here well into the night Tuesday. They were here during Labor Day. I was out of town, got a call from one of the teachers here about something, and it was Sunday. It's a remarkable reflection of the dedication and professionalism of the staff here. Everyone pitching in together. Now, I've told Kim Tenner we didn't have this problem until she came here. But Kim has really got baptism by fire here and has done an extraordinary job of hitting the ground running. Now, back to a year ago when I hit the ground running here, we'll notice some things that we really could be doing and should be doing. And together with our shared decision-making team, which is comprised of parents, Mrs. Okora is one of those parents, staff members representing all the different work groups, we looked at what we were doing. We questioned why we were doing it. Now Molly Stark has a 5-day repeating schedule. We had a 6-day rotating schedule, which was confusing to me, much less a kindergartner, that this day, this Wednesday might be day 3, but next Wednesday might be day 5. And you had to remember as a 5-year-old that I have physical education on day 2 and day 4, and this week it's Tuesday and Thursday, but next week it's Monday, and it was just very difficult. Wasn't very efficient. It prevented us from sharing staff with the other BSD schools. And anyone who was an itinerant with SVSU in terms of special education couldn't go from one building to another because it was like jumping on a merry-go-round in motion here. So we have a 5-day repeating schedule, which means that your daughters, if they have physical education Tuesday and Thursday, it's every Tuesday and Thursday. And if they have art Wednesday, it's every Wednesday. The other thing we were able to do is we're sharing staff with Monument because now we have a schedule that's aligned with the other BSD schools. It also, as a feature, means that Donna Stone, for instance, in 4th grade, the 4th grade teaching team, special education, interventionists, and the 4th grade teachers all have the same planning period. In the past, when a class went to physical education, it was 30 minutes. When they went to art or music, it was 50. So you couldn't align schedules, you couldn't collaborate. And that gets me to one of the other areas that I looked at all of last year: infrastructure and organizational culture. To maximize opportunities for our learners, we need to collaborate. And we couldn't do that if the schedules were disjointed. So I'm pleased that we're able to do that. The shared decision-making team also relocated some of the teaching assignments so that all of our grades are in close proximity with one another. That is, all 3 second grades are right alongside each other. And it's not haphazard where there's a 1st grade down here and 2 first grades down there. That doesn't promote collaboration. So it's been a new schedule. The teachers have been very adaptive and flexible as we work to adjust, and in particular, the kitchen staff. Everything revolves around this room at Molly Stark. It limits our physical education classes, which controls our schedule. So these women were able to adjust the schedule accordingly and get us going. So I'm very appreciative of where we are. It's lifting the boulder and moving forward so that we can work on addressing our needs academically. And there are many. And this allows us good footing for that. So Vic mentioned the tennis center as stage 3. It really lends itself to that. If you've been in there, they have 3 full courts and 1 small court. Of course, each has a side. It's all lined, so it's easy to put kindergarten here, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, neck, and early ed. They've been very, very helpful and gracious hosts when Vic and I went over there. They also were able, we have a grant that will allow us to repair and reline the tennis courts here, put a net up, make the courts smaller, that it would be appropriate for elementary age learners. They also are a partner with our after-school program. We have kids who go to lessons there. Last year they concluded at Bennington College, where our kids went up there, toured the campus, went through the dorms, had a meal there in the cafeteria with the kids and learned about college. This year they want to add Saturday morning lessons. Our goal, quite frankly, is to see Molly Starr graduates populate a championship tennis team at Mount Anthony. So we're working with our community partners, and Seth Gabriel in particular has been very good in that. Now, I don't want anyone to think that we don't welcome parents. We're going to have our cookout tonight, our annual Welcome Back Barbecue. We postponed it till tomorrow night. Well, we postponed that till Monday because the threatening weather. So that'll be Monday from 5 until 6:30, and I'll be behind the grill at grilling hot dogs, which is the extent of my culinary abilities. And I think they knew that, and that's why they put me there. One of the other things, we had, Edie and Donna and I had an opportunity to meet over the summer and look at how we can bring some conformity among practices among the 3 BSD schools. So Molly Stark will be joining Bennington Elementary and Monument in having electronic lesson plans. That allows access. That means that not only can our 3rd grade classroom teachers share lesson plans seamlessly with the 3rd grade special ed teacher and the 3rd grade interventionist, it also means in a school like Monument, where they may only have 1 3rd grade teacher, that they can connect with the 3rd grade teachers at the other 2 schools as well. So we're doing that, and it's just something that we feel a lot better about being more coordinated and efficient and effective with our resources here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And next up on the agenda is Ms. Dunn from Bennington Elementary.
Hope to be able to follow Mike and his watch, look, and listen next year, but I feel a sense of urgency in many ways to do some things. It's hard to believe that it was just July 5th that Carol Moran and Mr. O'Connor and myself sat up in the music room, and right next door was Donna Cawley and Raquel. And during the summer, we were able to really get to know each other personally and professionally. It's hard to believe that it took since July 5th to get to just day 2 here at Bennington Elementary, which has been a tremendous gift to me. My practice will include, I know Mike's shared a little bit about his practice, my practice at Ben L will include really spending a lot of time with students, and I like to, at some point in the day you have to eat to keep up the energy, so the best time to do that is to sit right with kids in the lunchroom. The first day of school I was with 5th grade, and I sat next to a 5th grader who said to me, wow, is this your first day of school? It's quite introspective of him. So because they're not quite sure what to make of me yet, we'll have our first assembly on Friday because we needed time to get things in order. I too would like to thank all the folks who worked so diligently during the summer to get us ready for this September 5th first day of school. It was quite amazing, as Mike pointed out, to be able to see the evolution of the school from just even 2 weeks ago. Sunday myself in our building, our gymnasium was not quite ready, and today, the first day of school, we were able to use it. So I can't even imagine coordinating that kind of project. I suppose as principals, we kind of do similar jobs, as John and I had lots of conversations during the summer. But as Jim Culkeen pointed out, the professionalism of the staff and their response to the timeline is really something that I'm sure you will hear each of us say to you, and you'll hear from the other schools. It is amazing. Teachers need and want time. Their planning is their number one priority, and they were able to make all students and families feel welcome on Tuesday. So that is to really be admired. I thought, as in my past practice, boards really wanted updates on enrollment. And I have to say, every day it seems to grow at Bennington Elementary. It comes and goes, but I think we're in a growth pattern. Our highest enrollment is in grade 3 with a class size average of 24. Actually, both classes have 24. And we're up to 278 students at Bennington Elementary. Vic's work with Jerry and I during the summer was really a great way to launch some of the changes that we would need to make immediately for safe and orderly schools at Bennington Elementary. In my visits to the school, before I even started, I noticed how dismissal was taking place at the school. Now, Ben L's situation in the middle of town without parking is indeed a challenge. So that's another piece that I'll need to explore with others. But the idea of how students leave the school and come into the school is really needing kind of a watchful eye. So we put into place a new dismissal the first day of school so that only kindergarten students will be picked up with parents coming directly in, and we have a great system for dismissal. At least we think it's great in terms of safe and orderly. I'm going to be continuing to work with families who are used to a different way of coming and going in the school. We are still welcoming families, especially in the morning as they come in for breakfast and get to settle students in, get a chance to chat with me and the teachers. That seems to be a really great time. But dismissal, when we go to meetings and have lots of other obligations after school, it makes it very difficult. More importantly, I think it's the idea of knowing who's in your building and who is taking your child. So that's the piece that we're really working on for our safe schools. So I think at this point, with just day 2, the next meeting that we have where we're all reporting out, I'll have lots to share with you about curriculum, instruction, practice, maybe some things that we're going to do to increase family and community involvement. We've already targeted that to be a really big piece that we need to work on. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Colley, how are you?
So, welcome to day 2. Incredibly excited to start again a new year. It's always great to see the kids and the families come in so very excited about the new year, and everybody came back today, which is awesome. I wanted to start out because it has been a very busy summer. I wanted to really begin with thanking the project managers at EEI. They were incredible. But all together, everyone in our district really came together to pull this off. And a few people that I had kind of noted and jotted down. We currently have Brian Steinhoff helping us out while Gary Kinney is out. And the whole entire maintenance staff. Jerry, have been truly phenomenal, moving things around and getting us back into classrooms. Ron from Cheshire Cleaning is doing a fabulous job. He knows us, he's part of our community, and we're so glad that he's been picked up by the new cleaning company, and we're really so happy to have him back, and also was so helpful. Our tech department has been working furiously. Marcia Franca at the head, Marcia Noyes, Elaine Hewlett, Annette Thomas have just been working tirelessly, helping us with all of our tech concerns. Our bus company, things have been going really well, and we were actually speaking as a team, my colleagues here, that at Monument we had no returned students, which is great. So everyone was really safe, and very, very simple glitches, which was really terrific. Vic Milani, lots of time spent together, as you had mentioned. Our staff is very, very grateful and feeling very comfortable about our plan, and that many of the portions of the plan we had instituted already. So we're really, really comfortable about fulfilling it and tweaking some details, absolutely. And I really loved the details. That's really quite helpful to us. We had a successful opening day yesterday. Truly, it was fun-filled. It was exciting for the kids. We had our open house back to school night barbecue last night. The Abbey group put that on for us. We had a tremendous turnout. There are a lot of pictures on our Facebook page, so please go and view them. But you can see the joy in the kids' faces. That joy was helped by Bowie the Clown, which was great. Came and did a magician show. And he is a balloon artist and personalized a balloon for every single kid during the evening barbecue, which was just so fun, and it was just really terrific. A few other things that I did want to mention. First of all, my colleagues, I absolutely had a fabulous summer collaborating on our processes, our procedures, everything that happened. My two colleagues here worked with, myself in sharing a schedule. We now have a shared schedule thanks to Dr. Bugis, who actually, Molly's on a 5-day schedule, which has been great. But what it did was really free up all of our schools, not just Molly Stark. So now I share some special area teachers with him, as well as sharing with Benel. So that's been incredibly helpful for our master schedule too. We're not feeling so tight and squeezed. Things are really going really very smoothly. But most of all, I actually have to say, I commend the entire Monument staff for their teamwork and their staying power, because the school looks fabulous, as I'm sure Molly and Benel do. They were ready. They had prepared those classrooms. The common areas look terrific. The entire school looks terrific. I think I also have some parents at my school here on the board, and I'm hoping that you would reiterate the same. You got to see it last night. It was just a really memorable day. I think for all of our children, each first day is a memorable day, and additionally for their families. And then a special thank you to Raquel Tern, who is my secretary, who in my absence for a bit actually pulled things together, and she was just right on everything and was extremely helpful to every staff member, coordinating things with our EDI, with Jerry Prue, so I'm truly grateful to her. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to policies. So we had the two added policies, and these were actually requested at the last board meeting. Did not occur to me when we were drafting this agenda for tonight, so I appreciate you putting those on the agenda for tonight. The first one to discuss is the communicable diseases, and this was put on the agenda at the request of Merity. Essentially, although this is a communicable disease policy, it also addresses head lice, which is no longer considered by the Department of Health to be a communicable disease. So Merity had some thoughts as to how this board could request the SVSU Policy Committee to draft a head lice specific policy that not only reflects the fact that it is no longer considered a communicable disease, but also a way that sort of institutionalizes greater support for families of students who have the head lice. So with that, Meredith, I'll turn it over to you, please.
So I wear several hats in this district. I'm a parent and a board member. And as a parent, lice is not fun to deal with within your home, within siblings. I never realized how expensive it is to treat lice. I never realized how time-consuming it is. And so as a parent, I can tell you that, of course, we all talk to each other. And we discover that lots of us have had children that have had not reoccurring, but separate cases of lice throughout the school year. And all of us are finding it to be extremely expensive. And it's going to happen in every school. It just is what it is. But I think we need to review an implementation of the way our policy is currently written so that we can try to facilitate means. You know, when you have one case of lice costs on average $86 for a 7-day period, and that does not include 10 to 16 loads of laundry for one child. So when you talk about having 3 children in a home, and if you do not have a washer and dryer, and you can't do 10 to 16 loads of laundry, how are families going to have their child ready for school? It's a distracted learning environment if they're uncomfortable and they're itching. So I think we need to take a look at the policy and come up with ways to implement it within the district in a way that is respectful to the families, but see if we can help them relieve the financial burden. I discovered that Dr. Dinosaur covers the shampoo, so if a child is covered under Dr. Dinosaur, they can get the shampoo, but are they accessing their pediatrician to get the prescription for the shampoo? And are they able to get to a laundromat to do what they need to do? So as a board member and as a parent, I'm proposing that we reconvene this policy committee to look at it and look at ways to implement it within the district that is more efficient than what we're currently doing. So.
Dr. Kelly?
Yeah, I sat on the committee meeting for that policy, and it was 2 years ago, I believe.
2014. Yep.
Yeah, well, 3 of them.
Yeah.
Well, it takes a time to get through. But one of the things that all the policies are written for is to make a broad statement on certain things and then have the admin regs follow up, because the admin regs are more easily changed than the policy is. Policy might take, another 2 years to do. So my suggestion to have it more immediate is to look at admin regs on it. And I think they were written because at that time, 2 or 3 years ago, a group of nurses came to the meeting and they had suggestions too. And I mean, they had piles of suggestions for it. And I think that's what it was deferred to, but I could be wrong.
So and that's correct. The headlight, a number of, I'm sure not all of the communicable diseases, but lots of communicable diseases are noted in the admin regs for this policy. And it outlines that in the cases of head lice, staff and parents are to notify the school. Nursing staff will let students and employees know if there's evidence of live head lice, and then the parents are then given information on the biology of lice. I think to assuage any fear that lice are jumping from head to head and going to infect the entire class, I think that's the idea behind it. But Meredith, you had mentioned that, for instance, Shaftesbury, I think you said, has a little bug zapper comb that they lend out.
There's a policy, after asking some friends of mine that work at the Shaftesbury school, there's actually zapper combs that are given to families that cannot afford the shampoo.
Again, that could be put in the admin regs rather than
and these. So I'd like to explore some ideas of how can we help. Can we get you, the pediatrician's prescription so that we can help you pick up the prescription shampoo? Can we offer you the zapper combs? I think that You know, I think that it's something that's important to having the kids comfortable and sitting at their desks, ready to learn and not uncomfortable, and have it be a day that they can go through and do it in a respectful manner.
So to that point, Jim, can you, sort of, I guess two questions. How easy is it for us to modify the admin regs to kind of take on a more supportive approach for families? That's the first question. And is it appropriate still to have head lice kind of couched in this communicable diseases policy when it's not?
I know there's been discussion among the policy committee that it should be removed from, head lice should be removed from this policy because it is not a communicable disease. Mm-hmm. As far as, but when this policy will come up in the cycle of the policy committee again to be revised, is best addressed to the chair of the SBSU policy committee to see what is in their queue for addressing. Changing, as Jackie mentioned, changing admin regs would be easier, but it still will, any revision we make in this reg will go back to the policy committee for review. So it's not, but it doesn't need to go through the whole warn and adopt cycle. Mm-hmm. So it could be, there are things that I know is going on in schools to help address this that I'm not comfortable discussing tonight in open meeting without being more factual on what I know from my meetings with the nurses about how we are addressing this with families that have a need. So it's not, a set policy, but I also know that it's in the budgets for some of the school nurses. They have these kits on hand. Does it help everyone? Obviously not, but it's. I don't feel that the schools and the nurses are ignoring this at all. In fact, they're being more proactive in it, but certainly not in a formal way that's addressed here. But I'll.
So this is my thought.
Like there's no policy that says that Shaftesbury has the zapper combs. That's not a policy or an admin reg. That must have been a decision that the principal put those in the budget, and I am not an expert to speak to the effectiveness of those either.
Sure. So this is my thought, and I'd like people to weigh in terms of a direction for us. Why don't we, if we could, table this for next meeting, for next month. In the interim, Merity, if you could put some specific thought into kind of what you might want to see addressed in admin regs, and
send it to. She should send any of them who has something that what you would think should, how the admin reg should be addressed or changed. I would appreciate getting those suggestions.
Sure.
So email them to me.
Yep. And at the same time, if you could please, Jim, try to gather up some of that information about how other schools have developed their own practice, not their policy or admin regs, but just how each school is managing this. The next month, we pull that information together, and if this board decides to ask the SVSU policy committee to take some steps, we can then ask our policy board, our policy committee rep, to take that to them. That's my thought. Yeah, Jackie.
The because we're not all one district yet, the BSD can have its own admin regs.
Okay.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. So unless there are any strong feelings to the contrary, why don't we do that? Why don't we gather up some more information, sort of crystallize our own thoughts about how we want to see this roll out, and then in October we'll take some action on this.
And if it
Fair
goes
enough?
to the policy committee, it's going to take 2 years.
Sure, and that may be, but at least this board is doing what this board thinks is appropriate. Great. So moving on to the field trip policy, 6230, and this was requested by
Me.
Jackie Crew. Jackie, as you had explained it to me, just as a way to sort of refresh our own minds on this and what's required by the policy.
Yes.
And again, it is a brief policy with many pages of admin regs that are attached to it.
I brought it up because I only saw one field trip request last year, and that was from Donna Colley for Nature's Classroom. And so, and as a board member, we are the ultimate responsible for all the students that are in our schools. So I think we should know where our students are going. And you know, people come up to me and they'll say, well, I saw the kids from such and such, they were here, or they were there, and you're there. You know, I don't know. Were they?
So I think specific to that, Jackie, the first point in the admin regs talks about how schools have, it uses the term blanket permission to take trips within 75-mile radius of the SVSU. So maybe what we could do, please, is ask Jim to ask his principals that if a field trip is coming up, just to have that mentioned in the educational matters.
But it also says, field trip forms must be used for any field trip outside the boundaries of the SVSU.
So we have a conflict within the admin regs themselves.
So if you're going to Manchester, you're outside the SVSU.
So does that mean just like the field trip forms, meaning to the parents?
No, there's a field trip form, and it'll tell you how it's tied to curriculum, who the chaperones are, who's the sponsor, whether it's the teacher or the principal or something else, where the money's coming from for the field trip, and then the superintendent, I think, signs it off, and then the board, it comes to the board, and we just use it. I've never seen one refused.
So Jim, what's the practice typically of when there's a conflict that's seen within the admin regs themselves? What's the practice for getting rid of that?
So I think practice is probably in conflict with what's in some of the regs and in the policy, because and it varies by school district, but the one that when I see field trip forms, particularly for, say, from middle school or high school, it's if they go out of state or overnight. Otherwise, that board is given that directive to it. So if it is for this district, as you say, that it's outside of the SU, I'm not entirely sure that is the practice in all schools, because, but we certainly can prepare a report on, you know, what the practice has been, and meet with principals and see, because it's not the time of year that I'm thinking field trips right now.
I bet not.
Yeah,
Right,
so
sure.
I would have to go back and revisit like where, because the forms come in to one central office in the SU, they go into Gloria, and then they're dispersed from there. So I would have to meet with her and put together what we have on file for field trips and see if I can detect a practice from that.
Well, I think from my view, it's less about kind of what has happened and more about just clarifying the discrepancy moving forward. It seems to me entirely reasonable that this blanket permission can be given if it's just within 75 miles. I don't think we should. I don't think we should be telling our teachers or building principals to curtail the opportunities they might explore because of
I think you should set
process.
parameters of what you
Right.
want to see it in, because the timeline will also, with meeting once a month, could make it difficult to
plan.
to plan.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to make any updates to the policy, I think we just make an update to the admin regs with clarification on when we feel it needs to come to the board versus not come to the board, and have that
could be whatever the
blanket.
board's comfortable with.
Right, we could have that blanket statement, and then unless it's this situation, overnight, certain
Right.
distance or
Overnight
whatever.
out of state would always come to the board.
Right.
So let me put this out there then. In consideration of the first admin reg, and consideration of what we just spoke of, could I please have a motion for us to right now grant blanket permission for the ensuing school year to the 3 BSD schools to hold any field trip with, as long as it's within a 75-mile radius of the SVSU?
So move.
Would you include going out of state then, New York or Massachusetts, as long as within 75 miles?
I think 75 miles, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have Chalice for the first, I have Merity for a second. Any further discussion about just giving that blanket permission now, with the understanding that Jim will ask his principals to notify us in the monthly update where they might be going?
I guess.
It doesn't make a difference to me.
Okay, very good. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, very good. So that passes.
What you might want to check is funding, because, I mean, we are responsible for the funding, so if we need to know they're taking a field trip and it's going to cost this amount of money, we might want to know that.
Sure, and I think funding is its own separate issue. I think what we're talking about, though, is do they have to go through that process of providing that form each and every time they want to take a field trip? And what we just said was no.
I think they,
There should be some guidelines on it being curriculum-based, too.
Well, and it is. That's contained in the policy itself. Through that action that we just undertook, we didn't change policy, we didn't even change admin regs, we just granted a permission before it was even asked, because that's the kind of board we are. So hopefully that'll take care of that. So moving on to item number 9, superintendent's reports.
Okay.
Nope, you missed one.
we did?
Educational placements and stability for homeless.
So that was taken, that is, what you're looking at as an old copy of the agenda. Jim is actually going to speak to that as part of the superintendent report.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so a lot of what I'm going to say is, by going last, it's going to be kind of a repeat. But,
You haven't heard the chair's report yet.
yeah, so I guess I'm not last, but I do want to repeat some comments they made opening day last Thursday at the SVSU meeting, particularly some comments that they made about the Bennington School District. Repeating myself when I say that you had a $4.4 million construction project to improve the lighting, heating, and ventilation in the schools, but you condensed it into one summer of construction. And I walked the buildings many times this summer during the project, and as you've heard said by others, if you walked these corridors 2 weeks ago, particularly walking in this building, you would have doubted that school was going to open. I never doubted it. I knew school would open. I wasn't sure when. So I just want to recognize the Herculean effort by the contractor EEI. Others have said it, but Jonathan Rush and Mike Davey, I came to respect and enjoy working with both of them through this project. Now, true, they wanted to be able to get a letter of recommendation from us that school opened on time and EEI performed, but I do think that they went over and above, including their subcontractors, what happened here. And to the Bsd Maintenance Crew, Jerry, you've been recognized by others, but I do want to recognize you.
Thank you.
And your staff, Dave Rittenberg, Dave Hensley, Gary Kinney, Brian Steinhoff, Chris Sherman, and Ben Morrison. The effort that they did to transfer, particularly what the cafeterias look like in all 3 buildings, even just a week ago. It is an unbelievable effort. So I owe you, and the rest of the BSD community owes you, our expressions of gratitude for a job well done.
Thank you very much.
And in our last facilities meeting, when Mike Davies said to us, he's not going to be the reason why we weren't going to open, I reminded him that him turning the building over to us doesn't open school. That we have to get the building clean, we have to get technology up and running, and we have to be able to get the teachers in the building so that they can unpack and get their classrooms ready. So to the tech staff, your efforts, Frank and his crew, your efforts to restore technology to Monument, Molly Stark, and Bennington Elementary Schools in such a small window is commendable, and I really thank them. I mean, I was up here walking around, and they're just unwrapping and putting equipment, getting up, and maybe not all technology was up and running for the first day, but it was pretty close. So, a tremendous effort. And then to the teachers of your school district, I thank them for their patience and understanding. We gave them some half days and 4 days to pack up, and basically gave them 1 day to unpack. So, and I realize the impact of not being able to get into your classroom, and I'm speaking to the teachers here, until Tuesday of last week. And even right up until Sunday night, I wasn't too sure that was going to happen, but it did. Their efforts to unpack, unwrap, and set up and prepare their classrooms for opening day with so little time is indicative of their dedication to your students, to their schools, and they truly are professionals, and it showed. you four in the front row are clapping, I'm going to address you next. To the vice principals and administrative support staff, you endured hiring staff, preparing for the start of school, and all the hundreds of things that you have to do to have school ready for when the students arrive. And you did this all while you were located somewhere other than your schools. So thank you for that. You didn't even get into your own office. So, I recommend it. And I mentioned this last Thursday also, a special thank you to the two new administrators, Kim Tenney and Edie Dunn, for their first day of their job on July 1. We said, welcome, but you can't go in your building. So when I walked up here on Tuesday and there's Kim unpacking her office for the first time, just like the teachers. So, welcome and thank you. So, the construction project, as you heard tonight, isn't complete, but it is far ahead of what we expected at this time. When we did the punch list walkthrough last week, we heard from the contractor that even the heating systems are basically ready, which we were always more under the impression that that was going to be well into October before that would happen. And one of the next events that will happen as that is planned is what's called an owner's meeting. Once that is ready, once the heating systems are up and ready, Jerry's people will be there. We'll also have tech people there, and it's really basically an instructional class for how these controls will work on these heating systems. And special thank you should probably go out to MAU and Paul Dansrow for allowing his system to host our system. There was some savings to you because of that. And basically the controls are set up on a server that's at the high school, and they had capacity, but it was still nice of them to allow that. And the suggestion from the contractor, and Frank Barnes assures me that he will do it, is that owners' meeting should be videotaped, and if we still use the word videotape, we don't, do we? Film, recorded, so that as staff changes, we will have a record of how these intricate machines work. So I'm very pleased with what I've seen as I walk the schools, and it's the tremendous effort from everyone who's involved to get it here. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of what we achieve here. We're going to have a better environment for our children to learn in. And it goes back to some of the things that Mike said about meeting those basic needs, and just the fact that there's a couple of cars in classrooms that have lower ceilings than what the summer began with, but and little different looks. Some cubbies that couldn't go where they used to be because now there's a radiator there, and it's going to be just, I was with Donna. Was that yesterday? I was up at your school, and we're standing in the cafeteria gymnasium, and you remarked on just you can just feel the air moving. The ventilation is working. So it's a vast improvement. So then a couple other things I want to go over. So thank you, Vic, for coming. And I'm gonna use my quote again about safety. It's something that I truly believe in, that we have to do. This isn't just a goal that I have for the SVSU, but I want us to be prepared. We have to be ready. And Vic is doing an outstanding job, as you saw tonight, for that. But I used a quote last Thursday, and it's worth repeating today, and it's from Dwight Eisenhower on the eve of D-Day. It says, "In preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable." So I equate that to what we're doing with safety. We realize that in a true crisis, maybe somebody can't get to that book and that plan or that flip chart. But what we're attempting to instill here is knowledge and instinct to all our staff by this repetition and training, that in the event that regrettable incident happens, or not regrettable isn't the right word, but that incident happens, that we are prepared for it, even though the plans might go out the window. There was a question last month about transportation and walking zones, and how far, I think the question was, how far do students have to walk to a bus stop or to school? So it is in the student handbook for BSD, and as we looked into this, and I feel that, and I've mentioned this to the chair, if the question's asked in public, then we should address it back in public. So as it comes out, that is different for every school district in the BSD. There is no uniformity, unlike our safety plans. But for the BSD, basically, kindergarten students who reside beyond a half-a-mile radius from school will be provided transportation. Students in grade 1 through grade 3 who reside beyond 3/4 of a mile will be provided transportation. I also have the ability as superintendent to shrink that requirement if I feel that it's an unsafe situation for that, where that student has to walk, either a lack of sidewalk or something like that. And that, in practice, does happen occasionally. So it's not 3/4 and we automatically cut you off. So the follow-up, in addition to that, is what happens with homeless transportation was a question. So we do have a director of coordinator for homeless students, and I posed that question to her. How do we transport homeless? I know how we do it, but I wanted
By bus, right?
yeah.
The answer.
Yeah. But we are required under the McKinney-Vento Act to transport homeless students, and because we realize it's one of the biggest barriers for homeless students is lack of transportation, and they won't be able to get there. So our goal is to, I think the question, Jackie, if I recall, was do they stay in their same school? And the answer is yes. Not in every case, because sometimes if the guardian or parent will agree to a change because they're going to be in that new district anyways, but we will transport, and we do transport students. The intent is to keep them, when they're homeless, to keep them at the school that they are currently attending, and we do run transportation from the various homeless shelters in the area. And I don't know if that answers.
It does,
because
I just think it's very important for a kid to stay in the same school all year. I mean, they have so many other things that are changing.
It is important, and is also required by the law, and we try the best we can to adhere to that. And I don't know, a couple of things that, I don't know if you're going to mention your report questions you asked me. Do you want me to address
Go ahead,
that?
please.
Yeah, okay. So the question come, especially with all the construction that went on in our buildings, when was the last time the BSD buildings were tested for radon? And that testing was completed, thank you, Jerry, March of 2017. It's about a 3-month process to when the monitors go in. All reports for radon in the buildings came back that we were under the levels recommended by the EPA, and there's no further action needed in any of the buildings at this time on radon. The SBAC test results, we do have them, but they're embargoed. So what that means is we can't release them. Administration was able to see them, verify things for accuracy, not test results accuracy, but student count, things like that. And we anticipate the state will release those, what the last word we got would be late September at best. So depending when we get them, I don't know if you will see them at your October meeting because you meet up early, but the practice that we use is the Director of Curriculum Instruction and the principals will do a presentation at the meeting nearest to we receive that information on how the schools had performed on that test. And I know Act 46, I know you'll get a report, but I want to explain why the meeting that was tentatively scheduled for tomorrow night has been postponed. The Act, last Thursday, Act 46 committee met and basically approved the Articles of Agreement and the course of action that we're going to do. Set a tentative date for when that vote potentially could be held, and that would be November 7th, not November 10th, not October 10th, as we first had tried for. After talking to the town clerks, I think they're probably delighted that we're not going to do it the same day, that the sewer bond vote will take place. We were able to move the date because we learned a couple of things we got a couple of answers from the state. Remember, November 30th is the deadline that we have to get this all done by to qualify for any incentives. So our thought always was to have the election in October, so that if it was challenged, as it can be, up to 30 days after that election, we would have time to do a revote. The Agency of Education has indicated to us, as long as the original vote is in the positive and it happens before November 30th, we have met that requirement, even if a second vote happened after November 30th, again, as long as that, it all passed. So we need to rewrite some parts of the article agreement because of the understanding that we reached with North Bennington. We also, what we had learned from the Agency of Education along with the date change is that they will not have to hold the vote and we can move forward whether they vote or not. So that works for us. And so those articles aren't ready yet, so there was no point to have a meeting tomorrow night if our consultant hasn't finished alterations to those articles, basically to take North Bennington out of them, and a few other minor changes. And we also don't have from our attorney Steve Stitzel yet what the ballot would look like for November, and we'd like to have that for that next meeting so that the board can know, the Act 46 Study Committee knows what they want to warn and send back to all the boards for individual votes on whether you want it. So it just seemed to, even though we had everybody agreeing that they could make it tomorrow night, which is a positive, we really didn't have the work product that we needed for the meeting. And that concludes my report.
So when is the new Act 46 meeting date, please?
The 14th at 6 o'clock at the CDC. So same location, same time, but a different day.
Thanks. Any questions for Jim? Great. Moving on to committee reports. Act 46, Dan, what would you like to add?
The only thing I'll add to Jim's very good discussion about Act 46 is one of the things that we'll be discussing at the next meeting is our outreach to the public and to the board. So Act 46 committee members will be back. We're going to make an attempt to get to every single board and describe exactly our process, where we are, what we hope to accomplish. And we'll also be setting up public meetings for outreach to the public so we can explain what they're voting on. They can make a decision whether it's something they want or don't. We see our role as education, not as marketing or promoting. Just this is what it is. These are the pros. These are the cons. And we hope that you'll come out and vote and make a decision. So that's what our next meeting's about, and we'll be back before you folks, so I don't want to spend a lot of time tonight before we finalize everything, but we will be back with a full explanation of where we are, how we got there, and what our plan is to move forward.
I have a question. Does this board have to vote to warn that?
Yes.
Yes.
All the
Okay.
boards.
I've had people ask me, that's why I was wondering. And I think it was at the FCSU meeting, and I'm not sure if I heard it right. Are people supposed to be running for the board, not for that?
Yes.
So
Yes,
people have
on the
to start
ballot.
home petitions?
Yes, that was a little surprise that we had. So it is important to note, and we're going to be letting everybody know this, and we have to get the petitions ready too. All the directors for the new board will also be running at the same time that we'll be voting on the merger. So it's kind of, it'll be interesting for folks who choose to run because they'll be running for something that they may or may not, even if they get elected, be able to serve on. So it's a little of an interesting election. But
And you can, and this is an instance where you can serve on two boards at the same time.
And we actually discussed at that last Act 46 committee meeting that it's important that folks that are serving on current boards also serve on the new board so that there's a smooth transition. So I would encourage anybody who is interested who was serving on current boards to also run for the new MAU SD board. So,
And Dan, is it a true statement that right now it is too early to start circulating your ballot, your petition to get on the ballot, because right now there's no ballot to be on?
That's
There's
true.
no petition.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's all going to be happening very quickly.
Very quickly, very quickly. Great. Okay, thank you very much. And Shayla, can you please give an update on the SVSU? please?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't, the big topic in that meeting was Act 46 and a lot of conversation, but that's so dated from what we have done and talked about since. So not really going to kind of go in that, but there was a lot of questions on North Bennington and the conversations that we were currently undergoing at that point. But so much has happened and so much conversations with the attorneys occurred since then that we do have a better understanding of an agreement with them and what we need to do to move forward. So that was the big topic of conversation. The other main thing is that we extended the food service contract another year for Abbey Group to continue that. There was some conversation about a donation that we received, and we're going to be looking into that further and discussing it at the next board meeting, because there was some questions on what obligations we might have if we did accept the donations, and what those limitations were, and so we needed to look into that further. Besides that, I think that is
that was pretty much
the nuts and bolts of it.
Yep, great. Thank you very much.
I have a committee question.
Yes, please.
Do we have a food service date committee meeting set
Yeah.
yet?
I can check.
Okay.
I know
I
they're
thought
gonna-
Renee was going to be here tonight, so I could ask her directly, but
Renee's on a leave right now, so.
All right, so we still don't have one that we know of. You'll let me know?
I'm down 3 central office administrators right now.
Great. So moving on to the chair report. Stop me if you've heard this one. Thanks, everybody. So over the course of the summer, at the various opportunities I had to be in the elementary schools, I always take pictures of the status of things and showed them to my elementary school age son, who, although he loved school, was really excited at the idea, like, there's no way they're going to get these schools ready for it to start on time. But it happened, and amazingly it happened. So let's go down the list. The folks at EEI, certainly, and Jeff's firm for doing a tremendous job. Thank you so much. Jerry Prue and the Prue crew for taking care of all of it at the end.
Thank you.
To the 3 building principals and Kim, welcome aboard, for all the efforts that had to take place from so far away throughout the year, and certainly to your staffs as well, because it could not have happened without them. To Frank and to Marcia and the technology crew. I will just add, coming last, it sounds like these are all afterthoughts and I had to take notes, but they're all written down right here, all the thank yous, just to be clear. But a few folks who haven't yet been thanked tonight that need to be thanked. Jackie Prue did a tremendous job as head of the facilities committee, because she had a hand in overseeing all this throughout the summer. Added to that, Jackie was pulling double duty a few months ago as part of the teacher negotiations. So Jackie has put in a tremendous amount of hours. ESP, thank you. Tremendous number of hours on behalf of the board and the students and getting everything ready. So thank you so much, Jackie, for all of your work on that for the buildings.
Thank you, Jackie.
For sure. And Jim has not yet been acknowledged, because Jim, if you ever see those guys who spin the plates on the sticks as part of the circus, virtually every time I chatted with Jim, that's what I felt like I was looking at. But at the same time, all those plates stayed up on top of the sticks. I know you have a great staff, but your work in making sure everything went the way it needed to go absolutely cannot be overlooked. So thank you as well. And how about another round of thanks? With the idea of kind of showing our appreciation, I would like the consent of the board to write letters of appreciation to Jerry's staff, to the teachers of the different buildings, just and certainly a public sort of declaration of that appreciation as well. So if I could have a motion to empower the chair to do so. Thank you, George. Thank you, Meredy, and third from Shayla. Any discussion about that? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Great. So I will get some letters written to staff, and again, possibly even to the banner, just sort of recognizing all that hard work.
Great.
I also wanted to say thank you to Jackie Kelly for her role on the teacher negotiating committee. Again, that's a huge number of hours that she dedicated, and to a great result for that as well.
They agreed to it.
which is wonderful. And the last piece, I'm going to be trying a new sort of record-keeping system to make sure that things don't fall off my radar. To that end, if any of the board members have items that they would like to see on a future agenda, please email those to me, and that will be an easier way for me to keep those on board. So that's it for the chair report. 2 notices for FYI. There's the budget status report that was enclosed in the meeting packet and is on the website, and also there's Jeff's report from Goldstone Architecture. So that exhausts our agenda for the evening.
You want to remind the board members of the essay?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So the Vermont School Board Association has its meeting coming up on the 12th.
12th, yeah.
And you can register up until the 11th, I think, or the 9th. Okay. So Karen Krulakowski sent out an email to the board members with that reminder, but I have to juggle some things around, but I hope to be able to make that myself.
She can assist people with registering if they're having difficulties.
Great. Thank you, Joe.
And I just want to make one comment about the VSBA thing. My term's up. Anybody wants it, they're welcome to have it. Please run. Somebody from the SVSU has to be on that committee, on board.
Well, there's another meeting too, and maybe you didn't get the one up in Fairleigh, Vermont?
The 2-night one, that 18th, 19th?
Okay.
Oh, and that's going to be on community involvement this year, which is going to be well worth attending. Actually, I pushed it.
I haven't seen registration for that, though.
You won't.
I haven't
Okay.
seen it yet.
Okay.
It'll come out.
Well, it comes out from your office, Jim, right?
Yeah, I haven't received it yet.
Yeah, it comes out from his office, and then you make arrangements with his secretary.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay. So could I?
Well, because we discussed, before we discussed having a so-called retreat, and that would be the perfect place.
Sure.
Agree.
I mean, we could combine the two. Because there's time, like, if you get up there early in the day, we could have our little meeting.
So since you mentioned that,
I disagree.
Okay.
That's the perfect time to do meet and greet with other board members throughout the state, find out how they do certain things to get different ideas.
Then there's breakfast and dinner.
So and so I'll sort of extend the chair report to this last bit. There were 2 items that we had discussed as a board doing. This was toward the end of the school year. No action on those yet, but they haven't been forgotten either. So it's still works in progress. So with that said, could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting, please? So moved. George, Jackie, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you, sir.